we do want to go through some questions that are going to be helpful for those of you who are focused on exam preparation. And even if you're just looking for real world, it's not a bad idea to see the kinds of things that you might actually also get asked in a technical interview. So that these questions do double duty on occasion. And let's get started with a look at SNMP and Secure Shell and Telnet SSL and SFTP. What is a secure protocol for the management of network devices? This is a tricky one. So the focus here has to be secure. And what that means is it needs to be encrypted. Fundamentally, a protocol that isn't encrypted, there's other things we like to authenticate to, but if it isn't encrypted, then it's not secure, okay? So the real tricky part of this is SNMP v2 is not secure. V3 is. V3 is very secure. You can use a lot of the same services that exist in IPsec, okay? But secure shell, that's your option here. TCP is a protocol that operates at which layer of the OSI model? We're going to spend more of our time focused on the hard questions. This is not one of the ones that I would consider a hard question, in that it's very straightforward, down the middle of the road, and we might ask this in a numerical flavor, but yeah, transport layer. But I wouldn't want to give you a false sense of security by asking you only the easy questions. And in chapter 4, we're going to see some really tough ones. IP telephony uses which ports? Now, this is one of those times where I asked you to memorize. Didn't give you the time to memorize, but which ports are going to be used by IP telephony? Now, this one I don't expect you to nail because we didn't cover IP telephony. It's actually in the IP telephony slides that are much later in the course, okay? 5060 is SIP, and 1935 is RTMP. I don't expect you to get all of these questions. Sometimes I just want you to see how a question is asked and why it's important to memorize, okay? So IP telephony uses a call setup and teardown message, which is 5060 and 5061 actually, but I think you only need to know 5060. And 1935 is for the communication of the audio feed. Firewall techs do need to know port numbers. You're noticing that your firewall is denying port 23. What protocol is being blocked? And a lot of times, Telnet won't even be a service that's on for your equipment. So sometimes you're going to get kicked off by a device that is refusing your Telnet service, your Telnet connection. And so you should also realize that a lot of devices don't even want to listen on this. And you can configure routers and switches and network devices in general to refuse. So sometimes you'll get a connection refused. And it might be that the device just isn't listening on Telnet. You're preparing brand new Windows station, want to get it prepped, you're doing remote troubleshooting. What port would you be using? Once I get past the ports that are beyond 443, I always have to remind myself I'm not as good once we get into the 4-digit values. This is a 4-digit value. Okay. So, in this case, 3389. And again, this is emphasis. Memorize these values when you are planning on sitting the exam. Okay? NTP has this stratum level. It's kind of like circles on a tree. I actually think that's where they got that construct, or where they got the name. You want a peer, so a lot of times we can set up an NTP server, or we're focused on an NTP client. We're trying to get our time, so we're going to either be a peer or a client. We're going to pair this with syslog, because syslog is almost useless when we don't have a timestamp that we can trust. This one is a little tricky. How far away from the center of the ring are we? That's what stratum is. And if we're really far, not going to work. So C and D aren't going to work. One of the things that's really interesting is you can't peer. You're probably not going to be able to peer with a 0. So this is going to be stratum level 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. All, anything from 1 to 13 would probably be just fine. Don't be too many hops. Stratum level is a hop count mechanism. You have a UPS, a battery backup system, the thing that's keeping your stuff alive when you have a brownout or a blackout in your data center. You could have these be proactively communicating the health. There's like maybe the health of the battery is bad. A lot of times these are lead-based batteries, like the same things that we use in our car. We know that our car batteries fail over time. Sometimes our UPS batteries fail. SNMP traps. We don't have to know SNMP in forums. Those are also used. And syslog messages. Good, good, good. Okay. And then what is a powerful way that we can aggregate, correlate, provide reporting for the security of our environment? You think of like a security operations center. If you've got a security operations center, you have one of these. You have a SIEM tool, security incident and event monitoring. Okay? Good.